everybody, it's Denise with God's Third Acre. Russell and I have been busy working outside. That's why I'm all sweaty. We mowed the yard, tied up tomatoes, put mulch around tomatoes, and I did a final harvest of rhubarb. So let's take a look at what I'm doing. Here's my final harvest of rhubarb. It's not a whole lot, but it'll be enough to make a little bit of jelly maybe, or a pie or something like that. So all I'm doing is I'm taking a pair of scissors and my kitchen scissors, and I'm cutting off the leaf at the top and cutting off the root part at the end and getting it ready to process. Unless Russell eats it all before I can process it. So here's all the rhubarb I got after I cleaned it up. Now I'm gonna dice it up and see how many cups I can get. I'm done chopping up my rhubarb. This is a 4-cup measure, and I've got over the top of 4 cups. So I'm thinking I've got about 5 cups of rhubarb, maybe 4.5. And I have this recipe page that I tore out of a little magazine called The Work Basket. They had patterns for all kinds of different craft things. And I'm going to make this rhubarb upside down cake. Sounds like it would be good. So I'll let you know how it turns out. Hey everybody, welcome to Grammy's Kitchen. Today we're going to make some delicious rhubarb upside down cake. I just harvested my last of my rhubarb, and I got about 4.5, 5 cups, which is just enough to make this recipe. It's the first time I've made it. I actually tore the page out of a magazine called Work Basket. I think I showed that to you earlier. So let's get started on this recipe. First thing we need is a 9x13 pan. I use my Pampered Chef, which I love. And I'm going to spray that with some no stick spray. Just want to make sure all the yumminess doesn't stick to the bottom. Then the recipe says to pour the 4.5 cups of rhubarb into the bottom of the pan. It calls for 4 cups. I've got a little more than 4 cups, which is okay. And then it calls for a cup of sugar over the top of it. So let's get a cup of sugar. I'm actually going to use a little bit more since I have more rhubarb than 4 cups. Maybe I will. That looks like quite a bit of sugar. I'll put just a little bit more in, maybe a 1/4 cup more, since I've got an extra cup. Okay, so we'll set this to the side now. The next thing the recipe says to do is to mix up the batter. Next, for the batter, the recipe calls for 2 beaten eggs. These eggs are some that our neighbor gave us. They have chickens, and we were gone for 10 days, so we've had them for at least a couple weeks in the refrigerator. So I want to see if they're still good. And the way to do that is to put them in water. This is what I was told. If they float, they're bad. If they stand up on end, you can still use them. And if they lay flat, that means they're very fresh. So these are not floating, they're standing up on end, so I'm going to use these eggs. Just a little tip. Look at those nice dark yolks. Look how beautiful the yolks are. I hope I got that up there so you can see it. So I'm going to beat these up. And then I add 3/4 of a cup of sugar. So I'll get those 2 incorporated. and a half a cup of sour cream, which I already measured. Want to get all of it. One cup of flour. And it calls for a teaspoon of baking soda and a quarter teaspoon of salt. I'm going to put that in with the flour and kind of mix that up a little bit so it'll distribute a little more evenly throughout the batter. So I'll have my cup of flour. And I'm a messy cook, as you can tell. Batter's flying everywhere. And I need 1 teaspoon of vanilla. This is the best vanilla. It came from Mexico. A friend of mine brought it back, and it is so good. So 1 teaspoon of vanilla. Okay, now I'm going to double check, make sure I got everything. 2 eggs beaten, 3/4 cup of sugar, a cup of flour, half cup of sour cream, teaspoon of baking soda, a teaspoon of vanilla, and a quarter teaspoon of salt. Now it says to pour this mixture over the rhubarb. It's a pretty thick mixture, so we'll see how well I can do at pouring it. So here's our rhubarb. I guess I should have saved this rhubarb for next week. We're having a family reunion, and this side of my family hasn't had a reunion in probably at least 30-35 years, maybe longer than that. Okay, let me get my scraper, get all this batter because I'm definitely going to need it. Seems like there should be more batter for this cake, but I'm following the recipe, so we'll see how it turns out. This is a trial with this recipe. It was labeled at the top of the sheet, Reader's Favorite Recipes. So I'm going to try to spread out the batter a bit, let it get all over that rhubarb goodness. I'm thinking I want more batter than that. That doesn't look like very much batter. So what I think I'm going to do is make one more batch of batter and pour over the top, and then I'll come back and show you that when I'm done. Hey everybody, I'm back. So I made a second batch of the batter, and I feel like it covers the rhubarb a lot better, so I think that's going to be better. So now I'm going to go ahead and put this in the oven. It bakes at 350 for 45 minutes. So we'll let it go for 45, see how that does. It may have to bake a little longer just because I doubled, excuse me, because I doubled the batter. So we'll get this in the oven and I'll be back with you when it comes out. Well, the rhubarb upside down cake is done, and the batter that I put on top puffed up a lot more than I was expecting. So I really have a lot of dough on top, but we've got a piece here. So let's taste and see how it turned out. That is delicious. So I hope you enjoyed watching me make this rhubarb upside down cake, and that maybe you'll try it yourself. Until next time, from Grammy's Kitchen, Have a blessed day, and God bless.